Good evening from Mendipata College, North Garo Hills, Meghalaya, India. Welcome to the third and the last day of 3-day virtual workshop on research methods, tools, and techniques for research design. I am Tony Curtis M. Sangma, one of the conveners of this workshop and assistant professor in the Department of History. Today, we have two speakers. Firstly, Dr. Froilan D. Mobo, Associate Professor 5 and Assistant Director, Department of Research, Development and Extension, Philip Fine Merchant and Marine Academy. He will be speaking on the topic, looking for reputational journal and indexing. Secondly, we have Dr. Antarlina Basu, David Scott Custon Professor of English and Literature, School of Liberal Arts and Humanities, Woxan University, Hyderabad, India. She will be speaking on writing research articles. So I, on behalf of Mendipata College, the organizer of this workshop, and Cape Comorin Trust, would like to welcome our two speakers, Dr. Froilan D. Mobo and Dr. Antarlina Basu, to the last day of the 3-day virtual workshop on research methods, tools, and techniques for research design. Welcome, sir, and welcome, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. One announcement I would like to make. We will be sharing feedback form in the participants WhatsApp group. I request all the participants to fill out the form and submit during the session. Thank you. Now we move on to the first session, and I would like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Froilan D. Mobo, Associate Professor 5 and Assistant Director, Department of Research, Development Extension, Philip Fine Merchant Marine Academy. Sir will be speaking on the topic, looking for reputation journal and indexing. Over to you, sir.
Okay, good evening. Am I audible, guys? Can you hear my
Yes,
voice?
sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, good evening once again. This is Dr. Frodon from the Philippines. So, my task for tonight is about, of course, the impact factor indexing of reputable journals or looking for a particular journal. So, it is very important for us nowadays that we have to check the, of course, number one is the attributes or the attributes of a particular journal. So, the most important part of it is what are metrics, of course. So, is very important, especially for us as a researcher. We usually have to check the status of a particular journal. Okay, so how does the scientific community measure how good or great a journal or an author is? So, for example, if you want to check the impact factor of an author's work, types of metrics which will be able to gain the reputability of a particular author on his own uh, publication. So with that, it should be purely based on number of times the article is cited. So it means that from there, you would be able to measure the quantity, the amount of quantity which is being cited. And of course, it's very important the quality of the research which is being published, of course, in reputable journals. So part of it, it is very important to always check the metrics, not the here in my place. Can you see it now, my PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Please. Okay, sorry, I was disconnected again. Hey, let's continue. So, Can you see? So we are talking about your metrics. So when you say metric, it's very important for us. Even if the journal says that you are indexed in a 7 point something with a high impact factor. So don't believe on that. Always check the credibility of the journal. Because I'm telling you guys, there are many rampant fake journals right now in the internet. Usually they will just invite you through email that they will invite you to publish a paper in their journal. But what I'm trying to say is don't believe on that. Usually they will invite you for you to hook in on their uh, journal. So always check, of course. Number one is to check if the journal is listed in the Bell's list. Another, for example, if the journal is already delisted, for example, from the higher impact indexing, for example, if it's already discontinued from the Scopus or from the Web of Science, you have to check that from time to time because they can easily say that they are indexed on those major databases, but you have to check, of course, always the credibility, especially if the journal indexing is not clickable. Okay, so it's very important. Can you see my screen before we move forward? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, next. So several methods to calculate the impact factor per journal is that's why they are always asking me because I'm also an editor in chief in one of my journal. I also own my own publication company. I always tell them that better to check the indexing. Do not always check the impact factor because the impact factor of the journal can all sometimes lure you. But if the journal is indexed in the Clarivate Analytics or Scopus, definitely, or even in Google Scholar, definitely it can measure the actual number of citations, the high index, everything is there. Or in the research guide, you can easily check them. So be aware, metrics are highly debated. For example, the most popular metrics which includes the number of citations, the journal impact factor, and author H index. There are hundreds of other metrics available, so better define than others, so better check them. Because my own experience as an editor-in-chief, before we index our journal in a particular reputable indexing, for example, we have IBSCO, Scopus, the Web of Science, the JGate, the IGI factor, and other reputable indexing. For sure, if the journal is indexed there and if the indexing is clickable, you will be able to see the number of citations, the number of each index, which can be tantamount to the calculations of the number of the high impact factors. So which is those are the basic methods. So those are basic techniques on how to avoid to be lured by predatory journals. Okay, and I know there are so many predatory journals now, even clone journals, and I'm one of the victim of a clone journal because my own website, my own journal has been cloned. Okay, so what I did to remove that is I sent him or their company. I told them that if they will not remove, of course, the names of my editorial board, and even if they will not remove my photos, especially, I will file a legal demand on them. So which means it's a lawsuit. Okay, so be careful on selecting journals. Another, on the journal level metrics, there are hundreds of bibliometrics indicators focusing on measuring the impact of the scholarly journal. So most of these measures are calculated from the poor old journal index in citation indexing databases. For example, the common popular are the Web of Science or Scopus. Okay, because they have their own strategy. Okay, for example, in the Web of Science, they have their own identity, which is I think Pablons is already part of the Clarivate Analytics. So if you're going to have for example, a citations, it will be reflected there. Even the review credits is also in there. It's very important to check the visibility of a particular indexing. Those are very important. And of course, now another is when was the last time that they have uploaded the papers? Okay, if the last month that they have uploaded this, for example, it's the year, it's okay. It's because it depends on the frequency of the journal, whether they are monthly publications or quarterly or semi-annual. So it depends. So you better check their activities. Because many publishers will also provide information about the impact of their journals on their web pages. Okay, but sometimes those are fake impact factors. So better check everything. Check them on their attributes. Okay, especially guys, if you're going to submit an article to our journal, always the standard operation procedure there is, if the paper has already been accepted from there, it is safe to pay the fees if there's a fee. But if they will demand an amount, a particular amount during the process of submission, you have to think twice because those are scammers. So be careful on those things that I have said to you, that to check if the publishers or journal is a reputable, check on the best list. Of course, another advantage is if they will give charge you APC, usually they will charge it once the paper is accepted, once the paper has been revised and they meet the requirements. So definitely, that's the time you have to pay for the article processing charges, and those are the basic operational process. Because the purpose of paying the APC, because that is to, of course, number one, there are so many things that they have uh to be updated on the part of their system. Okay, so all metrics based on this platform can be accessed via their reports. Okay, Scopus has their own platform that can measure. So many publishers will also provide information about how impact and how they are related. So you can look up the impact factor of a journal. So a journal's impact factor is a measure of how often the average article in a journal has been cited in a particular year. Especially if you have research profile, if that is a Google Scholar, if that is a ResearchGate, definitely you will be able to see the visibility of those authors who have cited you. Okay. So what is the impact factor in predatory publishing? Of course, a higher impact factor is an indication that the journal is uh, influential. If their number is we're talking about here is true. Predatory does not publish fake impact factors or do not list one at all. So you can check a journal's titles impact factor by journal citation reports, which is available in different databases. For example, if you have Web of Science, Scopus, everything, you better check them. That is to avoid being lured by those predatory publishing. And I'm telling you guys, it's really difficult to retract once the paper has been accepted for publication in a particular predatory, because sometimes even you don't inform them, they usually publish it immediately right after that. So better be safe, check the programs and plans of a particular uh, journal and of course the publishing company. Okay. Another is the citation metrics. Of course, these metrics aim to assess the academic impact of journal by measuring how often the articles are included in the reference or how often it's being cited. Of course, our primary goal as a researcher or scholar is to read and use, of course, the research, then cite using metrics that can give you an idea of whether the journal that you're interested in is widely read by this group. It's very important to check those figures, those metrics from time to time, because that is you are aware. Okay. Next. However, when considering any citation method, you should be aware of number one, citations aren't necessarily a measure of quality. It's about the quantity itself. Another, it provides pattern value for maybe discipline. Of course, that's true. Then subject matter will also affect citation because citation levels may be influenced by a journal's readership. Okay, so it's very clear that you always have to follow certain guidelines and protocol, not only in the book publication, but everything. Okay? So what's the impact factor? So that's to define the impact factor is a bibliometric tool for grading academic journals or even authors. It's very important to always check with that. Okay? And to be more precise, a journal's annual impact factor is calculated by dividing the total number of times the articles from the previous 2 years have been cited. That's why we always have to be ready in all areas. So what is indexing and impact factor? Of course, the impact factor or the IF or journal impact factor, the GIF, for an academic journal is a scientometric index, which is calculated by Clarivate, and of course, we can uh, give uh, update or we can check the update. So it's very important to do that. Okay. So those are important factors that we always have to consider and check. Okay. So how do you calculate H index? Of course, H index is a measure of the number of publications published as well as often they are cited. So with regards to this kind of situation, we don't have a problem with this as long as it is being defined. Okay. So this is an index citation for a research paper. Of course, the same thing that what we have in the journal publication. If that is indexed in Google Scholar, in Scopus, definitely they have the same process, but at the end of the day, they have different interventions or purpose from there. Okay, it's very important to always check every aspects. So of course, the calculation of index and other factors. Okay, so those are factors which is very important, especially from us. Okay, so can you still see my PowerPoint? Hello.
No, sir.
Wait, I'm going to share it again. Okay. So it's very important to know how the impact factor is being calculated. Okay, so the impact factor of a journal is calculated by demanding the number of the current year citations. So the source items published in that journal during the previous 2 years. So it can be counted, it can be checked automatically using a particular software. Okay. So any questions, guys, before we move on? Hello. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hey, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Okay. So how do you calculate the H index? Of course, usually this is a measure of the number of publications published. That is, we are talking about the productivity as well as how, as long as how what is the number of publications within a citation to decide it's already okay. Okay, so it depends. Okay, it's a case to case basis. Another, of course, is a citation report, the particular research, because this might link between the books or articles that were written, of course, in the past and present. So it's very important to always check all the aspects. The citation is very important, especially nowadays. For example, if you're a faculty of a particular university, it is always important to check the number of your publications, and of course, it's the citation which is being reflected. So you have to check them from time to time because from there you will notice that from the time that you will be using that for accreditation or for your promotion as faculty, definitely it will be a big help for us authors. Okay? It's very important because it's one part on how you market, of course, the company or the particular research. Okay? Next, the impact factors calculated, of course. Then predatory misleading metrics. Sometimes there are so many things that we need to consider. Sometimes The academic publisher personally combined with the relative ease of web creation has inadvertently created by a marketing ripe of exploitation of academic authors. It's very important always to be uh, active there on the part. It's always important that we need to identify those misleading journals or predatory. Okay, so those are the important areas that we need to consider and always check. Okay, so uh, another, of course, for the journal impact factor, how to spot them. Of course, first one to know is research the company, its background. Maybe the reason why they were being discontinued is because usually they do uh, uh, a monkey business transaction, which is not really good, of course, on the part of you if you own your own company. And another, are they asking for a payment or anything? So it's better important to check. And from here, it was um, being said that it is based on their processes. Okay, but if you I think this one part is already accounted in one of the metrics of the indexing. Okay, and reliable impact factor usually is of course the databases, which is for example coming from Thomson Reuters, the Web of Science, or Elsevier as Scopus. So it's very important to check them always how they are they play a vital role on that part. Okay, for example, uh, I will be giving a particular website wherein you will be able to see the impact factor of a journal. I'll share a particular journal website, and that is my own journal. So let me share it so that you will be able to know how you will be able to know and identify. For example, this is a reputable journal. It's as you see, you will be able to check the indexing. And apart from there, you have to make sure that it is clickable. If the link is clickable, definitely they are uh, they are linked with that particular indexing databases. It's very important to check the reliability of a particular uh, journal. Okay, and always check their aims and scope and the publication ethics. So from there, if they follow certain guidelines based on this, it is good. It has a good part that they will be able to meet the standard of a particular publication, and of course the reliability. Okay, so let us go to, so we have those. Okay, uh another that I want to share, of course, is wait, yes. Can you still hear my voice, guys? Hello.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So let me share another. Have you seen my website a while ago? Have you seen it? The website of my journal.
No,
Have
sir.
you seen it? So it's very important to check always the uh every areas. Let's go back on a PowerPoint. One part of this is, as I could mention, you always have to check because if the journal is questionable, or if you want to make sure that they are they are not predatory. So the journals sometimes, for example, usually they do not collect our APC, or sometimes they collect, but it's on the latter part. Because predator journalists will claim that they have a proper editorial boards and a peer review system. But guys, mind you, based on my own experience, uh, usually predator journalists, they will just accept the papers and publish it as it is, and they do not go on a particular review process. Because in my case, usually we have to and rely on a particular journal. Articles say. So those are factors that we need to consider and check. And for the conference also, you have to check, okay? Because I know nowadays we're receiving many emails now coming from different sectors that they will invite you to uh, join in the conference, or something. They will invite you to publish your papers on a particular Scopus index. But if you're going to check the guidelines, or usually you have to check the credibility. Sometimes a particular journal is a member of on copy. It's on the Committee on Publication Ethics, because the publisher is uh, following standard with this. Usually they are committed to follow highest and standards of publication based on the copy principles. No, that is based on the publication ethics, or outlined in the processes. And then you should always be careful on the blacklisted journal. Potentially part of that is the predatory scholar open access publisher. So sometimes this archive version of the bus is a list of questionable, scholarly open. But mind you guys, not all open access journal or publishers, they are linked with predator, but you have to check all their papers, everything, okay, to make sure that you are always safe. So from here, you would be able to check on the best list. Okay, this is a good example. If you're going to click on that, it will be redirected on a particular website, and then from there you will be able to identify which is good or which is not really good to fit on your requirements. Okay. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, next. What does an
Yes,
author
sir.
need? What does an author need to publish a research or a book? Usually, if you want to publish an article, traditionally most writers need to find, of course, a particular publishing company or a particular reputable journals. In order to find one, you must identify the category for each writing. If you are or want to be a nonfiction, so it depends. Okay, so those are areas that we are going to follow. So how do I protect my publications, articles, or book from being copied? By registering them to a copyright office, so they will be uh, safe on that part. Okay, so always check all attributes and all factors or all their history. So guidelines for authors, usually this are just basic. So we have front matter, manuscript presentation, or link, or on this part. Okay, then the good thing with this, as of now, in the Philippines, they already launched a national book development board, which is created under the Republic Act 1847, which is also known as the Book Publishing Industry Development Act. Because right now, there are a lot of researchers that they have to follow standards. So another is, of course, they have to comply with the requirements which is set by this kind of national book development. I think in other places they have their standards based on this. So better you check with them. Okay. So if you're open for possible collaboration, especially in research, please feel free to join us. This is the journal website, and I would gladly to share it to our colleagues so that it will help them or guide them. So those are possibly collaborative groups or other that can help us. So if you have any questions regarding my topic for tonight, please feel free to answer.
एक अच्छा सबका है वो
Okay.
तो बनाई कहाँ जब बनाई घनी देर होगी एक कब बनाई
Any questions so far with regards to the public on my topic, comments and suggestions? So that is to make more clear on your part. Anything about the topic which is being discussed so that it will be more clear on your part. Because right now there are lots or a lot of publishers and journal that sometimes we could not be able to identify if they're really authentic. But one way that I have learned is that if you have those accreditations, which is part, of course, of your uh, endeavor as an article or book writer, so definitely you will be qualified and be part of the indexing library or the library of the particular indexing, which can gain, of course, help, support. Okay, so questions, guys? Clarification? Any clarification with our topic? Hello?
Is any question from the participants? You can ask the resource person. Right.
Yes, please feel free to ask me so that I would be able to guide you or help you guys, especially in your area. So any questions, guys? Clarifications? Questions?
Any questions from the participants?
Participants, any questions, guys? And moms? So I think it's none. So
I think no questions,
that,
sir.
yeah, I think they already learn all the techniques and way on how to identify predatory journals or how to know the impact factor of particular journal because it really helps a lot. Okay, on this particular area.
Yes, sir.
So I think with if you do not have any questions with that, this would be the last part of my presentation. So I hope you have learned many things. So with that, thank you for inviting me as one of the speaker guys. So I truly appreciate your invitations to me, especially to our coordinator, Dr. Baso De Baso. Thank you for always inviting me and giving me trust with this kind of engagement, especially in research. Maybe we can talk about possible collaborations later. Okay, so I think that would be all on my part. So thank you guys for inviting me again. And first, thank you to my friend, also from Indonesia. That is, of course, my friend Yusuf. So, any more questions, guys? Clarifications? Clarification, guys? None?
I think no questions, sir.
I
Hello,
think
sir.
yes, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Ravindra Yadav.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I want to
Please.
ask one question, please, sir. If you have spare time for me,
Yeah, sure.
sir. How can we introduce a fake journal, sir?
You can check if a fake journal is there by checking on the Bell's list. I think I can share it to you. You can check from there. There are so many factors, not only of course the journal, but other. For example, if the journal is not indexed in a reputable, so which means that is questionable. So always check the indexing in their website, or if they are really updating their site. Okay, so that would be all, sir. I think I hope that I have answered your questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you for inviting me once again, moms and sirs. This is Dr. Shail Ha. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir,
Yes.
for your excellent presentation on the important topic of looking for reputation journal and indexing. I think everyone who attended benefited greatly from your presentation on the subject. Gratitude once more, sir. Thank you very much. Now, we will move on to the next session. Before
Sir
that,
Tony. Yeah, Sir
yes,
Tony.
yes.
Actually, we need to share the feedback link, and I'm not getting the access till now. So I want to request actually Madam Selja, if they can enable the chat option and can open it, and we can share the link, I think, there. Madam Selja is there?
From Cape Comorin.
Yes, from Cape Comorin, organizing secretary.
Otherwise, the participants can check from question and answer.
Yeah, in the question and answer, that link we have already shared, the feedback form link. So from there they can access it, sir.
Okay.
Okay, we can communicate with Madam Selja later on again. I think
okay,
she's not available right now.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, then we'll move on to the next session. Now, before I invite our speaker, let me introduce our second session speaker, Dr. Antarlina Basu. Dr. Antarlina Basu is currently an assistant professor at the School of Liberal Arts and Humanities at Woking University, India. She also functions as the co-chairperson of the Center of Excellence Literature Studies and holds the David Scott Caston Chair Professorship of English Literature. She had pursued PhD and MPhil at the University of Hyderabad, where she worked on exploring and interactions between trauma and translations. Prior, she had pursued MA in English at the Department of English, University of Hyderabad, recipient of the IAFOR Scholarship, UK 2017, for her research article on the Indian graphic narrative, and grants from DOTTSS, Tampere University, and NIDA School of Translation Studies, Italy, for her pioneering research on trauma. Dr. Antarlina currently teaches critical thinking, reading and writing, and analytical appreciation of language at Woking University. Madam, please, you can take your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. First of all, congratulations to Medi Pachauri College and as well as Cape Correspondent Trust for organizing this timely workshop. And thank you for inviting me. Sir, should I share my screen?
Yes, you can say.
So is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes.
So we will be thinking about writing research article, which is a very significant topic given the pressure we face to publish in the academia. It's something like this. I'll start with because this is a daunting topic altogether. We'll try to make it as so we'll try to make it as interesting as possible. So we know that we face a lot of anxiety with regard to publishing because there's a saying, publish or perish. So in academia, if you do not publish and rather publish like a machine, you will definitely perish. And if you see the pressures academicians face to publish rigorously, not just one article, not quality, also but quantity. Articles should be, they should be high value, but also the number of articles you publish matters. So there is constant pressure that you publish, and these articles that I have in the screen tries to show you the pressure that you face as a research scholar, as an academician, and yes, as a student, as maybe an early career researcher, and I believe most of you here will be early career researchers. So I believe that you face a lot of pressure, and it could be sometimes very daunting. But if you see the task of writing and research article as a block of Cadbury, that's what I see especially when it's published, because that's what I tell my students. It's basically like when your article is published, it's basically like you've been awarded something like a Cadbury. So if you break it into pieces, for instance, literature review as a cube of Cadbury, then moving on to the next segment, evaluation of your research, another cube. And if you break it into this entire whole process into segments, it becomes much easier. And in this talk, I will try to make it as simple as possible for you to write an article, so that you not only find it doable, but you also find it enjoyable at the same time. So this is going to be basically this is going to be basically the contents of my talk today. So first, I'll start with not writing an article, but evaluation of your research, and then moving into selecting article type. So Dr. Mobo had talked about elaborately on how you select an article, but we're talking from a slightly different perspective. And I will be talking about how you determine the authors of your paper, how you select a journal, how do you arrive at a journal. He was talking about indexing. Dr. Mobo has talked elaborately, but I'll slightly touch upon it. And points to consider while selecting a journal, because before you write an article, you need to consider the journal, the target journal where you want to publish that article. So these things are very important and very interrelated. Okay, so basically, then we move on to talking about creating an outline of the paper and writing the first draft of your paper, then revising the manuscript and submitting the manuscript. Okay. So it is going to be elaborate, but I'll try to make it as fun as possible. So before writing the article, so our title of the talk is writing the article, but before we delve into writing the article, we will consider two processes. So writing the article is the third step. Before that, we have literature review, we have evaluation of research data. Now, any of the audience can tell me, the students can tell me what is literature review. You can open your microphone, we can interact a bit, it's all right. What is literature review and how do you do literature review? Okay, so for the ones you know, it's all fine, but for the ones who are not aware or are slightly hesitant, hello? Okay, for the ones who are slightly hesitant, how do you write a literature review? Suppose first step is searching for relevant literature. Now, what do I mean by searching for relevant literature? Suppose you want to work on gender and literature in Meghalaya. Gender and literature in Meghalaya. And then what you will do is, you will read all that has been published on gender and literature in the context of Meghalaya, Meghalayan writers. So you will read, say poetries. You will do a very broad research. You will read novels, you will read graphic novels if they are there, and then you will select, you will evaluate the sources. You will also evaluate, say, articles, academic articles written on these gender and literature in Meghalaya, okay? And once you have evaluated the sources, you will understand how writer A, say, has talked about gender and literature and how it is different from writer B, and how academicians have talked about writers A, but not writer B. So what you will do is you found a gap that, okay, writers B's works have not been explored. So what you will do is, say, for instance, gender and sexuality in women's literature in Meghalaya has been talked about, but say LGBTQ issues in Meghalaya, in writings of Meghalayan poets has not been talked about. So that's the gap, and there you have a space to talk about. Naufal, you have raised your hand. Do you want to ask a question? Naufal Munir?
Hello, madam.
Okay.
Your sound is not audible sometimes.
Uh, uh, sir, am I not audible?
No, sometimes it's not audible.
Uh,
Could you please little?
is everyone facing the issue?
Ma'am, actually, we don't find that problem.
Sir, it is okay, right?
Yeah, it's okay, but the
Madam,
volume is little low.
Okay. I'll try to speak a little louder.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, I'll be a little louder. So basically, you have to evaluate the source and you have to identify the gaps. And then once you've identified the gaps, say, as I told you that there's not much work on LGBTQ issues and literature. So you have identified the gap and then you outline the structure of your literature review. Like, okay, this is available, this is not available, this is the problem. This has been worked on, but this is not being worked on, and this is where I want to. This is the research gap, and this is what I want to work on, and this is how I want to contribute by writing an article. So this is the literature review, and you have to write a literature review down, a basic structure, and I will just show you. Go back to this plot, and once you have done the literature review, you have to evaluate your research data. So once you have seen that this is the gap and you have collected your data, you also have to evaluate the data that you have collected. And this is all before you write the article. Okay, just a moment, sorry. This is all before you write the article. So how do you evaluate your research? Sometimes what happens, we have our own conscious, unconscious biases, and we tend to give a lot of value to our arguments, to our ideology. So best thing is to take peer review, peer feedback, also feedback of your supervisors, of academicians. It really helps. Most of the academicians, if you approach them, they generally are open to clearing your doubts. So it would be very helpful that once you evaluate your research, once you have found your data, it's best to evaluate your research through others as well. And self-evaluation can be done by discussing these questions. For instance, you can ask these questions about your research. Have you done or found something new, unique, or interesting? So does your research contribute to the existing knowledge? It's not a repetition or a repetition or a re-elaboration of what has already been written down. Does it contribute something new, unique, and interesting? That's one. Is the word directly related to a current topic? Though, this is very debatable. I often debate this, that, okay, it can be something that is not a current topic you're working on. But what happens with current topic if you're working, for instance, gender, you're working on, trauma, you're working on, eco-criticism. What happens? And I'm giving examples from literature because that's my domain. So we're working on this current topics. It sells, just to put it simply, it sells a lot, and people are interested. You will get more citations. Often, people keep these thoughts, in the back of their mind. So it's very important that these are taken into consideration. Then, have you checked the latest results or research in the field? Why latest research? Because what we do is sometimes we tend to work on, we are citing. Suppose we are working on translation studies, and we are citing someone, the first theorist, say Holmes, and it's a 1956 article. Very good. You've worked on, you've read his essay, you know how the discipline has developed. But you also need to read the article that was published yesterday so that you are up to date with the research. It's very important that you read the recent research, the most recent research. That way, what will happen is, what was talked about in the past, what was talked about in the present, and what is going to be talked about, where the research direction is heading. So you should always check the latest results or research in the field. Okay, and have you provided solution to any difficult problems? Does your research make any major contribution? This is also something that you can see to evaluate your research, that you're moving in the right direction. And are your findings clear and comprehensive? It's something, again, very important. Your findings have to be very clear, because a vague, a non-clear unclear finding doesn't work, especially if you're trying to publish in UGC care listed journals or Scopus Index journal, primarily Scopus Index journal. Dr. Mobu was talking about it, that if you want to publish, the Scopus Index is especially in humanities, it's one of the best areas. So if the answers to all these questions are yes, so you ask these questions, it is called self-evaluation. You have done your literature review, you have evaluated your research, and once you have done this, you can think about writing your article. But even before that, you have to finish a few more steps. So then we move on to the next step. So if you have any questions, you can just ask, you can just interrupt me and ask, no problem. So moving on to the next part, quick tips. So this is what you do while evaluating your research, and as well as also doing a literature review. You keep a track of everything that you're reading. Okay, whether it's, suppose you're reading gender and literature, as I was telling you, keep a track of everything, the ones that will be helpful for your research paper, as also the ones that will not be helpful for your research paper. That way you will be able to know what to refer and what not to refer. Okay, so keep a track of your reading list and keep a note of the citations. Okay, so suppose there are texts that you will be referring to in your paper, keep a note of the citations, which author, which book, which page number, which year the book was published. Keep a list, because if you do not do that, you have to get back to the text again, and that time it will be a very very time consuming process. And that is where many many scholars find it difficult, and it's very time consuming. Like academicians, you have to juggle a lot of things. If you're a research scholar, you have to function as a teaching assistant, you have to attend your coursework, you also have to do your research. So you have to be clever with your time, you have to preserve your time. And for this, it's very important that while you're doing your literature review, while you're doing your evaluation of research, you should keep a note of the citations in a separate maybe file or a folder or a copy. You can do that. Okay? And keep writing about your observations alongside reading. So when you're doing your literature review, it's also advisable to keep observations right on the side, on the margins. You can write down your observations, your reflections, your perceptions. Okay? So yes, so this is something that I always say, that when you write your article, you should remember that you have to add to the existing knowledge. It cannot be a repetition. It's no more repetition of what has already been said. Many times when we review articles, we see that our students are basically character analyzing, say, giving a summary of a novel. That doesn't work. It's a research paper. There's a lot of you have to bring in theories, you have to bring in methodologies. It's going to be a quite rigorous process. So he was an Oxford scholar, and he won the Roots First Prize winner. He says that it is not enough to challenge dominant theories without offering alternative theoretical approaches. Do not speculate, provide evidence. So everything that you write in your research paper, you have to provide evidence for that. Without evidence, it doesn't matter. Okay. So moving on to the next point. Yeah. Now, this is again a very, very important topic, you can say. What article type are you writing? So you have done your literature review, and you're planning to write an article. So you should know what is the kind of article that you're writing. Are you writing an original research paper where you have done an empirical research? Your research is based on findings, on data, or are you going to write a review paper? Are you going to write, so there's a book published or there's an article that's published, and you're just going to review the book. So what is the kind of paper, article that you're wanting to publish? Naufal, you want to say something? Are you raising your hand? You can type in the box if there's a question that you would want me to address. So again, is it a review paper? Thirdly, are you writing a letter, commentary, or reply? For instance, there are a lot of articles that are replies to other articles. So a very interesting article has been published. Now you have read the article, but you do not disagree with it. You don't agree with it, okay? Or you disagree with it, okay? Or you agree with it very strongly, and you have your own comments to make. So what you can do is you can write a commentary article or a letter article. So those articles are also possible. Similarly, interview papers. For instance, you have interviews here offered, or say a stalwart in your field, and you want to publish that interview in your journal. You must also have to check that whether the journal publishes such interviews, and whether you're going to publish that interview as your article. So you have to think as to which kind of article you are writing. That is very important. Okay. Now, determining the author. So when you're writing an article alone, so you're the sole author of the article, it's okay that you don't have to get into this. So you have to write the article, you've done your literature review, you've done the evaluation of your research, and you can start with writing the article. But suppose it's a collaborative project, and it's often seen that very good articles are collaborative projects. You have to, because two minds are always, most of the times, better than one. So you might have to collaborate with your colleague, or you want to collaborate with your professor. So what you do is, this has to be done in the very beginning, even before you write the article. So determine the authors. Who are going to be the authors of this paper that you're going to write? How many authors are going to be there? Is it 3 people? Is it 2 people? And one of the most important things that you need to decide even before writing the article is who is going to be the first author, who is going to be the second author, who is going to be the third one. Okay, if you have 3 people, or if you have 2 people, who is going to be the first author, who is going to be the second author. Now, these things are very important because you don't want problems later on, because there are expectations of every scholar. You don't want to ruin a relationship, so it is best decided in the very beginning as to who is going to be first author, second author, and third author. So the first author is generally the person who actually conceptualizes the paper and who makes a 50% contribution to the article. The second author could be someone who makes a 30% contribution to the article, and the third author could be someone who makes 20% contribution to the article. So you decide it, and what you can do is you can also divide the task between the 3 articles. Okay, I'll be looking into this part. You can look, because your specialty is psychology, you look into the trauma aspect. So these can be decided in the very beginning, even before writing the article. Understand that it's quite a project. It's a broad project, a big project, let's say, a grand project, let's say, and it needs a lot of planning. And if you plan wisely, chances are you will be able to hit the target. So make sure that you plan who the authors you're going to collaborate with, and who's going to be the first, second, or third author in your article. Then clarify, state clearly what should be the contribution of each of the author. Is also instrument, as I mentioned, it's very helpful if you all decide as to what each of you will contribute. This will help in enriching the article, and also make it more. You will be able to do it in a more systematic way. There will be no overlappings of paragraphs. So that's determining the author. This is all before you even start writing the article. Okay. Now selecting a journal. Now, often the notion is that I will write my article, I will revise my article, and then I will select my journal. Please do not do that. It's always suggested that select your journal first. Even before you write the article, you've done your literature review, your research is ready, you just have to write the article. Make sure you select the journal. So, which is the journal that you're going to send your article to? That is something that you decide in the even before you write the article. So, because the journal you choose is very important. Whatever you're writing, does the aim and objectives of the journal align with the aims and objectives of the paper? This is a question that you need to consider. Remember that your article can be perfectly flawless, your article can make a good contribution, but if you're sending an article, say to a post-colonial studies journal, and your article is on eco-critical studies, it will not be selected, right? And you have to be very careful. I mean, this is a very broad example, but you have to see the aim. You can list down the aims of the journal point by point and see if it aligns with your article, and then only choose that article. Okay. And if you choose the right article, your article can become quite well known. Your article will get a lot of citations. a lot of exposure, which will also help you in academia. But if you choose the wrong journal, if you choose a predatory journal, as Dr. Mobo had already elaborated, then it will not help you in the long run. So target UGCK journals, target Scopus Index journal, or highly indexed journals for that matter, in your field, in your respective fields. And it's a tedious process. You have to do a lot of research. Suppose any area that you pick in, you will not always, all the expectations, all the criteria will not be met. But if 70% of your research aims met with a journal, that you're choosing, if so, then you can go ahead. I know that 100% is rare, and if that happens, then you're lucky. But at least if 70% of the aims are matching your aims as well as the journal's aims, then you can go ahead with the project. Prefer indexed and open access journal. Index journal, as Sir has already mentioned, it helps you get exposure in the long run, and it's always important that you send your article in an index journal. Otherwise, it's a wastage of your valuable output. And also open access. So what is open access? Open access is basically journals that are free for everyone. So I go to the online and I want to read, say, there's a Bhaskar Jyoti Bora's article, and if its article is open access, then I can just read it, and I don't need to pay for it, because if it's locked, if it's under under a paid platform, then you have to then it's difficult to always access the article, because they're often very expensive. So try to publish open access. You will see in a small lock and key in the journals. You can see that the journal is open access. Try to target those journals, and those journals are also generally free of cost. Okay, and manuscript must be peer reviewed, and also you choose a journal where your manuscript is peer reviewed. Remember that if you target a good journal, it might take time. It might take 6 months, 1 year, 2 years for the article to be published. But when it is published, because it goes through a lot of peer review, it goes through a lot of correction, your article, not only your article will be published in a good journal, but your article will also, but you will also grow as a researcher. So it's always suggested that you choose a double-blind peer review journal. Okay. Now, points to consider while selecting a journal for your article. These are some points you can choose. Language of the journal. So, what is the journal language? Is it available in English? You can go ahead. If it's available in Hindi, of course you can go ahead. But when a journal is available in English and you're working, say, on business studies or management, or literature for that matter, and if your article is in English, you would prefer to go with a journal that primarily publishes in English, because it makes it available to a wider audience. Simple reason is that. So focus areas of the journal. So what are the focus areas of the journal? What is the focus area of a paper? Does both of them align? And if it aligns, you choose that journal. Okay. Then indexing of the journal, which has already been discussed by Dr. Mobo. Availability of the journal. Now, as I mentioned, is the journal available? Is it available online, or is it available offline? Remember that even like Sahitya Academy has a journal, but it's not available online, right? So what happens is those authors hardly get citations. Even though the articles are very good, they don't get citations because nobody is able to read the article. So to choose wisely, is your article going to be available online? And are they open access? These are things you can consider. Now, reputation of the journal is also very important. So, for instance, certain journals have very good reputation. Okay, it's a fair journal. It might take time, but it's a very fair journal. Again, think about a journal which are predatory journals, which have bad reputation. For instance, I'll give you an example here. Rupkatha Journal used to be a very good journal in India for a very long time for interdisciplinary research, and it was also Scopus Index in the beginning. But the reputation fell because of certain allegations, and it lost its credibility and also lost its Scopus Index status. So these things are things that you see. So once you see that, okay, it's not Scopus Index, the reputation of the journal has fallen, maybe you decide not to send your article there. Because often good researchers or well-known researchers will not actually refer to a reader article if it's in such a journal. Then format recommendation of the journal also very important. It's a bit tedious, but formatting, the right formatting. Suppose they want MLA format, follow that. If they want APA format, follow that. That is also very important. Now, figures. What are the figures? Considering the figures that you need to project on a journal, and the charge is applicable. So whether it's a free journal or whether it's a paid journal, whether you are you willing to pay for publishing your article. If not, you skip that journal and go to a journal which is free. So most of the Taylor and Francis journals are free of cost. They are, Routledge as well. So if you're writing a good article, you can probably publish free of cost. So select steps after selecting the journal. So what are the steps that you take? Now you have selected your journal, but you're still not writing your paper. Remember that. So read the specific journal instruction for authors. What are the instructions for authors? Read a few articles from the journal so as to get an idea of the kind of article that is published there. This helps because suppose you select the journal, you just read 1 or 2 articles that has been published in the journal. It will help you understand as to what kind of articles are expected from you, what kind of articles get published in this paper. This is really helpful process. It helps you also write better articles and write target-oriented articles. What does the journal want, and how I will shape my article as to the journal's specifics. Okay, and format your article as per the instruction. This is also very important. I'll share that with you. For instance, this is a journal. This is a Taylor and Francis journal, and it's called the Journal of Graphic Novels and Comics. So if you look at the screen, you can see journal overview. Look a bit towards the middle of the screen, and you can see journal overview. So see the aims and scope of journals are given. What is the aim of this journal? And here it writes that Journal of Graphic Novels and Comics covers all aspects of the graphic novel, comic strips and comic books, focusing primarily, but not exclusively, on the 20th and the 21st centuries. You understood that. They focus primarily on 21st and 20th and 21st century graphic novels. So this is something that you need to note. That is the primary focus. The emphasis is on the production and consumption of comics in their cultural, institutional, and creative context. So this is the aim of this journal. So you read further, that's the scope. Now you can move on to the journal metrics, and you have already seen, Dr. Morbo has already elaborated on journal metrics, how you need to see its citations, what is the value of this journal, how many articles of this journal are being cited by authors, so you understand how popular this journal is. And then also the editorial board. It's nice to know the editorial board. Who are the people that are there in the editorial board? Also instruction, moving on to the instruction to authors. Okay? Now, Mustaf Ahmed, have you raised your hand? Do you want to ask a question? Okay, so moving on to the next part. So just to show you again, instruction for authors, and you will find a list of instruction of authors. So once, hello, yes?
Ma'am, voice is better.
Hello?
Not audible.
I'm not audible?
It is clear, ma'am. Keep it same.
Actually, I'm not being able to hear you. Your voice is breaking, sir.
Now your voice is clear. I'm in position.
Dr. Shaileja, am I audible? I'm a little confused now.
Now you are audible and your voice is there now.
Audible, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible. Don't worry. Continue your lecture.
Perfect, ma'am. Thank you. So, okay. So it's very important that you also look into the instruction for authors. And you can see submission instructions. In the side, you can see submission instruction for authors, editorial policies. You must read. It's a strenuous process, but you must read this. It will really help you meet your target. And the target is publishing your article, writing your article, and getting your article published, which is the final goal, right? So that's very important that you do this bit of reading and this bit of hard work. Yeah. Okay. Now moving on to the next part is creating. Now we come to the kind of writing, starting to write your paper. So Now that we have done all this work, all the strange works that were needed to be done, we come to creating an outline of the paper. So remember that you will not be able to write a paper in the first go. It has to be called a manuscript, your first draft. Okay, so you have a literature review, you have done the evaluation of your research, you have selected your journals, you have selected your authors, and now you begin to start the main work, kind of starting to write your article. Okay, this is how your article should technically look. So it should have a title. Of course, I'll get into that. I'll elaborate on that. It should have an abstract. Most of you know that abstracts are kind of the key, kind of a preface to your article. So if your abstracts are understandable, are clear, are actually showcases what you want to do and showcases that you make a significant contribution to your area, to your discipline, chances are your article is selected, at least for review, at least for presentation. Okay, and keywords are also very important. So you have the title, you have the abstract, and the keywords. Then you have your introduction to the article. Introduction of the article would be roughly, it depends from subject to subject, and it depends from needs, but it could be roughly one page and 1.5 page. And then the aims of your research, where you talk about your aims and the methods. This is results and findings, the discussion and the findings, scope of the research. I'll discuss this in detail in the coming slides. The scope of the research and the conclusion. So this is again one set. And the final, the third step is the acknowledgement, the ethical statements, and the references. Okay. So coming to the first step is the title selection. So how do you? Now you've already begun the writing process. So how do you select a title for your article, and why is it so important? Why is it so important? Because understand that often reviewers are busy people. Reviewers often do not read the entire article. They will read your title, they will read your abstract, they will read keywords, and if you do not cross that bar, then that's it. Your article will not be read. So it's important that your title says what you want to do. It makes it clear to the reviewer as to what you are trying to achieve through your article, right? Through a research article. The first impression is the first impression that you make on the reader or the reviewer. So, the first impressions are last impressions. So you must try to crack the code here. It should be concise, it should be brief, but it should also tell what you want to achieve through your article. Okay. It can have it can be in 2 parts. It can have a title and it can also have a subtitle. For instance, I've given you an example of one of the articles. So the first part is representation of history in the Indian graphic narrative. And the second part tells you that it is going to be an analytical study. It is going to be an analytical study, a kind of qualitative study of history through the frame of graphic narratives. Okay, so it's going to be a textual reading as well as historical reading of graphic narratives. Okay, so it also informs, your title also informs what your paper is about. For instance, when you read this title that I've given there, for an example, you know that it's going to be, the broad domain is literature, the subdomain is Indian graphic novel, and, the areas that it's going to cover is historicity, it's going to talk about politics, it's going to lead into the structure of graphic novel. Right? So it tells you what your paper is going to be about, and it's going to be an analytical study. So it is also your chance to attract the attention of the editor and reader. It's important if you can give a catchy title, if you can give a quote in a title, depends on the kind of work you're doing. It really resonates with the editor and it kind of makes them want to read more, so it helps. Then the title should also be informative. So as I told you, it should inform as to what your paper is going to be about. The title should be concise. This is again very important. Often you have 2 lengthy titles. Try to avoid that. Try to give a conscious title. Understandable, says everything, but at the same time conscious. Let it not go for 3 to 4 lines. Okay, and avoid jargons and abbreviations. So, what are jargons? Jargons are difficult words. Okay, a complex technique, terminologies or words that are very subject specific. Often, what happens is readers find it difficult to understand jargons, and your article, it becomes incomprehensible and neglected often. So try to make your title simple, but also at the same time delivering the message. Now, why I'm asking you to avoid abbreviations? For instance, if I write in a title PTSD, which means post-traumatic stress disorder, people who are in the field will understand, okay, this article is going to be about PTSD. But others, say people from, say, pursuing geology studies or historical studies, they might not be familiar with PTSD. And what will happen is they will not understand, they will not resonate with them. So it's always good to give the full title, if you're referring to, do not use abbreviations. The full phrase is better, okay? So your title can have two parts, as I mentioned, but you can have a title and a subtitle. It really helps. The subtitle can further explain on your title. Sometimes you can just give the title if you think that one title is self-explanatory. It does the job of explaining as to what your article is about. Perfect. But if you think that your article needs a further explanation, you need to use a subtitle, then do that. Go ahead. Moving on to the next part, keywords. Now, keywords are also very, very important. It's often gets neglected. Often we don't use the keywords to the maximum of potential. We just give random words as keywords, but that is not suggested. Read your article thoroughly before you derive the keywords of your article. Don't write them in the very beginning. You can write them in the very beginning, but make sure you change them, change the keywords, keep changing the keywords as you read them out. Okay? For instance, keywords are an essential part of using an article. And when writing a journal article, you must select keywords that you would like your article to rank for. So suppose you can see this, I'm giving you an example, and it's from a different domain or medical field. So there is tumor necrosis factor, signaling, and in macrophages. And you can see the keywords. If you go to the bottom of the slide, you can see about 6 or 7 keywords listed there. 5 or 6 almost keywords listed there. And what it does is it showcases what this article is going to be about. So if you are from, say, a political science student, you will not read this article. You know that this has nothing to do with your work. So a medical student will understand whether this work is helpful, because even medical domain is very fast. So he will understand by reading the keywords that whether this relates to his work or not. So if he's working on arthritis, he will definitely read this article. But if he's not working on arthritis, this doesn't relate, for a matter doesn't relate to his work. So keywords are important. You select your keywords very carefully, and it helps you get discovered to the right readers. Remember that. So suppose you are working on, say, partition in history, and suppose there is a scholar based in, say, based in UK or US is also working on the similar field. Now, if they're trying to find articles that is published on partition and in its impact in the northeastern states, then probably he will find if you give the right keywords, he'll be able to trace your article very easily. So it's very important that you try to give the right keywords and narrow them down. Keep revising the article, and then narrow it down. Okay. Now the abstract, the very important part again. Abstracts, is something that you send when you're participating in a conference. Also, when you're trying to publish a book chapter, you send your abstracts. Often, so you know that even before you write the article, you write a rough abstract. Okay. Later on, you might modify it after you finished your article. You might have a slightly different abstract, but that's different. But the first thing that you often write is your abstract, and understand that it's a very important part, and you have to communicate yourself to the reviewer through your abstract first, even before your article. So if your article might be very good, but if you do not pay enough attention to your abstract, chances are your article will not be even selected for publication. So what you have to do is you have to be able to summarize, kind of say everything that you're going to do in 300 words, which is a tough work. But again, it will help you kind of arrive, get published if it's done in a good way. An abstract should be short paragraph, not more than 300 words. Often they also ask you to, make it very brief, up to 250 words, and it summarizes the findings of your journal article. Not only the not only the findings, but also what you're going to work on. What is your aim? What is the gap that you are trying to fill? What is your findings? And everything in a very, very, very condensed way. So, first topic, as I mentioned, I find these 3 steps very interesting and very helpful when I'm writing. What is your research about? This is very important. So, you have to say, okay, I found this gap after studying this area, find this gap, and the aim of my paper is, or the aim of this paper attempts to, and this is your, you tell about what your research is going to be about. Moving on to the next step, what methods have been used? What are the methodology? What are the theoretical framework that you have referenced? Whether it's going to be a qualitative research or quantitative research, you have to state that. And what are your main findings? That is also important. The research through the study, it has been, the result is this. Okay, so this is how you can, what should be there in an abstract, in a very condensed way, the entirety of your research paper. And it should be very interesting, so that it is able to lure the editor to read more. It's very important that it is done in a very interesting and intriguing way. Now, introduction to the article. How do you write an introduction to your article? You basically, introduction is like a preface to your article, and it is slightly different from the abstract in the way that you do not so much write your findings here. You just talk about a bit about your article in general, and a bit about your literature review and why you want to do this, the rationale behind behind your article. So you introduce your paper, and again, first impressions, if it's done in a creative way, it really helps, especially in humanities, and it situates and contextualizes your arguments. Okay, you must situate research, contextualize your research and your position. What is your position in this, with the research that you're doing, and overview of your argument. Give an overview of what is your argument about. And again, as always, be precise, be clear at all costs, because it's important that everything throughout your article, this is one of the rules that you must remember. Be precise, be clear, and even if you think about each word in your article. Is this word needed? If you think it's not needed, and if it is not required, just delete it. Often we tend to use, in humanities, you will see different people use them, or in language studies especially, we tend to use a lot of adjectives. We always ask the students that, is this word really needed? If it's not needed, just get rid of it. So be precise and be clear at all costs. Moving on to the main body. Now, I'll try to spend a little more time here. So basically, this is a very important section. This is your body. And as I told you, you have written the abstract title, abstract, keywords, you've given an introduction, and now you're coming to the main body. So in the main body, you start with what do you intend to explore in the paper. You've started, and first you talk about your methodology. What are the methods that, whether you've interviewed people, whether this is what are the source texts that you're referring to, what is the method of data collection, everything. What is it, qualitative or quantitative research, and what makes it qualitative or what makes it quantitative research? These are the things that you state in the main body of your, this is in the second part of your main body. Now, data analysis is also very important. Like you have to analyze your data very meticulously, because editors and scholars pay a lot of attention to your analysis of data. As I already mentioned, before you publish your article, it's always good to have a mentor, especially if you are just beginning, if you're a young researcher. It's always good to have a mentor who tells you, okay, your data analysis is correct. There are no biases, because we are often blinded by our cognitive biases. It's very important that we do the data analysis, and also it's always nice to have a good guidance, someone who can guide you in this regard. What are the findings of your research? Now, after you have analyzed the data in details, it's important to outline the findings of your research, and your findings should be very, very clear as to what is the contribution, what you have found through your data analysis, and how does it contribute? What is the contribution of your article? And building on that, what is the scope of future research in that area? So you have worked in this area, and what is how could another researcher, or even you for that matter, could take this research forward? Because it should not hit a dead end. It should always roll on. The ball should keep rolling. So understand that, and outline what are the findings of your research. Outline what are the scope of this future research. Okay? Now, with this, we come to the conclusion of your article. Remember, we just go back. Remember, okay, before as I told you, we are coming to the conclusion. After that, we will get back to the references. Just a minute. Yeah. Conclusion should be an interpretation of the results. You already know that. And it basically summarizes, again, does a summary of all that you did in your article and what you have found. Also sometimes gives a one line or two on the scope of the article. And also it is often you will see the limitations of your article. What are the limitations of your research is also often addressed in the conclusion. So you as a researcher should be honest, not only with yourself, but also with the academic community. And it only builds trust, and it only helps you and helps the academic community. So if you know that there are limitations in your research, it's best to address it in the conclusion that, okay, these are the topics, though this research finds this, these are the topics I have not looked into, and we could further carry on this research by looking into these areas. So you can talk about the limitations. And as I told you, summarizes the research, and do not introduce, this is very important, introduce new concepts and new terminologies in this section of the paper. Because a conclusion is basically a recap. Okay, if you introduce new concepts, new ideas, it can be often problematic for the reader, for your not only reviewer but also for your reader. If it's published, also for your reader. So it's best to not introduce any new concepts in the concluding section. Now moving on to the acknowledgement. So imagine the three of you have written you have collaborated with three of the authors have, published, you have collaborated two other people, you're the first author. And anyway, first author, second author, and third author are getting mentions. But there are also other people who could have helped you in this journey. Suppose there was a book that you were not getting, and as Indian scholars, we often face this problem a lot. There are so many books that we are looking for, we're not getting it, and then there's a friend in, say, UK or US who's helping us with a document. So with the book, with the soft copy of the book. So you would acknowledge these people who have helped you in writing this article in this section. So you have finished your article, but acknowledgement kind of helps you acknowledge those people who helped you write this article, and they could have helped you in any way. They could also have helped you financially. For instance, the person could have financed your research. Your research required a lot of funding, which was not available, and that person was a patron. So you could acknowledge that person. Also intellectually, as I told you, that guiding you, you had difficulty in understanding a concept. You wrote to this professor, and this professor helped you explain the concept to you. So it's good that you acknowledge these people. It only builds your integrity. It also already builds builds trust, because if you are able to pay credit, it showcases that you are able to, you're not self-absorbed. You're helping you're not just thinking about yourself, but you're also thinking about the academic community, and it really helps in your growth. So always do that. If you're getting help from someone, sufficient amount of help, it's best to acknowledge the people who have helped you in this journey. And next part is references and citations. Something that is very important. When I was talking about literature review, I told you that when you're doing a literature review, evaluating your research, please keep a list of the references that you're going to refer, right? Please keep a list of everything that you're reading, keep the citation. So this work is going to, if you do that, this work is going to be a clear work. It's going to be very easy. You don't need to spend a lot of time. You will save a lot of time. So remember that, suppose you've kept it. So remember the references and citations should be well balanced, current, and relevant. So all the texts that you're referring in your research paper should be relevant with your arguments. You're writing a paper, as I mentioned, on graphic narrative, but you're quoting someone who's written who has written something in a different context with regard to eco-criticism, do not do that. It again decreases your credibility as a researcher. Look into proper arguments, then only quote that person, okay? So your references should be balanced, current and relevant. Relevant is one. Current, why current? So as I told you, if you're talking about a research, it's always, I'm talking about, say, trauma, it's always good to refer to Freud, who wrote in the 1800s, but it's also best if you can refer to the article that was published on trauma yesterday. It's also that good that you can do a literature review as recent as possible. So so what has happened in the past and what is happening now, that should be reflected in your paper. Do not refer to only old articles, old journals. It's very important that you contemporize your research. Otherwise, your research will be obsolete. I've seen a lot of, in my research area, people refer to only one trauma theorist as Kathy Caruth, and they don't refer to the new trauma theories that have risen. And what happens is it doesn't become a holistic research. And in that process, we have to, check out those articles. We cannot select those articles because if it's not recent, then how can we take it? If it's not updated, we cannot. If the research is not updated, we cannot publish it, right? It becomes redundant. So that is something you should keep in mind. The next point, you should aim to cite references that are not more than 10 years old if possible. As I told you, this is again debatable. You can use older concepts, but make sure you use the newer articles. You refer to the newer research that is being done in your field as well. That is something that really helps you write a good article and helps your article get acknowledged. Okay. And the studies you cite should be strongly related to your research questions, something that I've already mentioned. They should be very much related to research. Don't just quote for the sake of quoting, refer it only when it's relevant to your research, okay? With this, we move on to the references and plagiarism. I believe the ones who've attended the session, you have already done a class on plagiarism, so you know the dangers of indulging in plagiarism. You should be very careful. Consciously or unconsciously, we tend to often quote people and think it as our own good ideas as well. It could be your own, it could be an idea as well, not just verbatim quotations. We have to acknowledge this is again and very ethics in academia, very important. You have to acknowledge the first people, the research papers that you're reading, the works of researchers that you're reading, the researchers who have helped you, as I told you, and also if you're quoting concepts, ideas, make sure you also refer to the talk about the people, cite the people whose concepts or ideas you're using. Very important. Another thing that is very important that I forgot to mention in the slide is self-plagiarism. For instance, you have published an article in, say, 2017, and today you're writing an article, and think about, and what you do, you want to use a concept, your own concept from that article. But suppose you think, oh, it's my article, why do I need to cite it? You need to cite it. Because in the plagiarism test, if you send your paper to Turnitin, it will be detected. If you're quoting one line and you're not citing, it will be detected. So make sure you're also citing yourself. Self-citation is also there, so you can do that, okay? So make sure you do all this so that your paper is free from plagiarism. After writing your article, maybe the second draft, say, send it through a software in Turnitin, like Turnitin, and you will get your plagiarism report. So if you can get a plagiarism report, if your plagiarism is less than 5%, it's very good. If it's 0, it's best. But if you can get at least 1 to 5, less than 5, it's actually a good work. Okay. So unpublished, yes, anything that is, as I told you, I am sure you are already aware, but anything that has been published or unpublished material, whether online, whether in hard copies, you must know that if you are quoting, you have to cite. Okay? Even if you're quoting a YouTuber for that matter, you have to cite them. Okay? So please do that, or someone is Instagrammer, you have to cite them. I'm not sure what kind of research you're doing, but that is the importance of this of citation. Otherwise, it is called plagiarism. Okay? Moving on to figures and images. If you're using figures and images, I have time, right? I have time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So moving on to figures and images. So again, figures and images, if you're using figures and images in your paper, in your research article, make sure they're correctly formatted. In every journal, there will be instructions how to format your figures and images. Sometimes they will ask you to add it in your research paper. Sometimes they will ask you to make a separate document and send those figures and images. See what they want and do it accordingly. Otherwise, again, they will be hesitant to publish your paper, because remember, editors are busy people. Editors are very, very selective as well. So they want perfect papers, and you have to try to make your paper as perfect as possible. Okay, from your side there shouldn't be no glitch, and this is one of the things. Format them well. Now, suppose you're using data that has already been published. Okay, you're using say graph that has already been published by some other author. In an article, you're taking from an article, or you want to reproduce an image that has been, that has been already published, or image someone by other person, picked by other person. You have to take your permission. Okay, just because it's available online doesn't give you the freedom to take it, to speak it and use it in your article. You have to take permissions, and remember always to take written written permissions, so that you have a proof that you have taken your permissions. Articles, journals of Taylor Francis, Routledge are very particular about this. So if you do not produce it, they will not consider it. And suppose they don't ask it, they might initially not ask for a written proof, but later on, if they ask and you say that you have received and you have not received, it will be a very difficult situation for you. There will be legal actions taken against you. So take these things. Be very transparent in academia. It's very important. It helps you as a researcher, and helps you grow as a researcher as well. And as I told you, always say to offer the written proof, and figures and image should be properly numbered and labeled. So you suppose you're using 5 images: figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, figure 4, and figure 5. So that is very important that you number it. Remember, you're just publishing. You're not publishing only for yourself. You're publishing for posterity. You're publishing for researchers, your peers, and also researchers becoming young researchers. So make sure that you make it as readable, as understandable as possible. So numbering is also very important. Okay. Now moving on to writing the first draft, chronological or chaotically. So this is often debated that, do we start our article from the beginning, from introduction, body, conclusion, or do we write the findings first and then we write the introduction? It depends on you. I personally believe that it totally depends on you. Again, if you're collaborating with a lot of people, you have assigned different parts to different people, and the one problem that arises is that different people have different style of writing, so the paper might look very incongruent if you do not revise it well. So in that case, if 3 of you are collaborating with the write a paper, make sure the paper is revised very well, so that will help the paper attain a tone, in one singular tone. That will really help the paper, be comprehensible to the reviewer or the reader. Okay. Then, so as I told you, many people prescribe that you write introduction, then body, then conclusion. But I personally believe that it's up to you. If you find, I prefer to write introduction, body, conclusion. But if you prefer to write the findings, then introduction and conclusion, it's up to you. It's up to how you want to approach writing the paper. Yes, write the paper. Start where you feel confident with, as I was telling you. Start with what you feel confident with, and write first and edit later. So a lot of young researchers, what they do is they start writing the paper and they start also editing simultaneously, and it becomes a very, very difficult process. They get entangled in the process. So first you write a draft. Remember that you're not writing, the first draft is not for publication. You're just writing it, you're just putting your messages there, and then you're going to edit it later, much later. So because it will give you less stress. So and if you become anxious, your output will become will be disrupted. So best write your paper first for yourself, for your growth, for your happiness, and then edit later for publication. Okay. Revising the manuscript is also very important. A lot of people, this is again where a lot of young researchers tend to hesitate, that, I'm not going to revise it. I've done enough with this paper. But remember, your revision will help you cross that bar and get published, get selected. Okay, help your paper get selected, article get selected. So once you've written the paper, make the major alterations. Suppose you're reading 2 paragraphs. Okay, And then finding that they are incongruent, that the ideas are, it's reading, it's looking disrupted, the ideas are not really adding up, then rewrite the section. It is a hard work, and that is why it's an academic work. So you have to rewrite the section. Do not hesitate to do that. If you find that when you're reading the article, if you find that you're not really getting, you're finding that it's not very clear, rewrite it, okay? Then polish the style, refine the text, and correct grammar and spelling. So refine the text. So if whichever text you have written, correct the spelling, grammar, put it in a Grammarly, check it. So it helps you, get over those glitches, those technical glitches. And again, as I told you, formatting is very important. Format as per the rules of the journals. If they want APA, go by APA, MLA. It just depends. Okay, Chicago, it just depends on what the journal wants. So this is why I asked you to select the journal in the very beginning. It helps even during revising the manuscript. Okay. Moving on to the next slide. Yes. Now submitting the manuscript to the editor. I've already told you this. Follow the instructions of the author again, because there are many instructions, many. If you publish with Taylor and Francis Routledge, you'll see that there are n number of instructions. Often and they're also varied. It's not that all Taylor and Francis journals follow a similar pattern. They're often very varied. So read it properly, and note that a few journal permits a pre-review. That is a cover letter. So often what editors prefer is a cover letter. What is a cover letter? You write a letter to the editor saying that this is my article and this is why I want to publish with your journal. Why did you select that particular journal? And the third point is what is the contribution of your article? What have you done in this article? And it should be brief only. It should not be very elaborate, one-page kind of cover letter. You also write cover letter when you're applying for jobs, so it's not going to be a very difficult process. You will be able to do that. And if necessary, so at this point, you may wish to list possible reviewers. Often this happens that, there are, in certain journals, allow you to choose the reviewers that you would like to, you would like them to review your paper. And or avoid certain, or you say, okay, this reviewer should not review my paper. If you have any personal grudges with that person, that could also be an option. And then if necessary, contact the editor to be sure that the manuscript was received. Okay, so if it is possible, often what journals tell you is that they will contact you in 3 months. In that case, it's best not to write to them until 3 months. But otherwise, you can, if there's no such rule, then you can just send a mail saying that, sir, have you received my article? That's all. So it makes you, it gives you that, okay, my article is in safe hands, is received by the editor. And different journals have different policies. So if after a month you do not get any feedback, then you can, of course, write to them that, what is the status of my journal, of my article. And but again, as I told you, different from journal to journal. A lot of journals now say 3 months minimum, okay, for reviewing. Look into that. And yes, again, just a very quick tip is that clarity is key. Make sure your articles are clear. Just a revision of what I've already told you. Clear language, making your writing accessible. This will make your article more readable, more understandable. And if your article is understandable, it will be read by a lot of people, cited by a lot of people. So important thing is you make your writing clear. You may want to write for a global audience. It is very important. I'll just give you an example. For instance, in one of the articles, the student wrote Western people are not really familiar with. Okay, but you have to understand in West has subdivisions, right? So Finnish people would not clearly identify with, say, a British people. Not always, not in terms of culture. So your article is not resonating with the Western audience. So do not, when you make use of such terms, you be very wise and explain as to why you're using those terms. Give a rationale behind as to why you have used those terms. So be very, very particular about it. Okay, and write your journal articles with citation to give your readers certainty in your research. So as I told you, you will be citing the authors that you're referring to, and this will also help your reader understand what kind of reading you have done, and they can also, if they're working in a similar domain, it will also help them read and gain knowledge about the same. So yes, with this I come to the end of my presentation. If you have questions, I'd be happy to take them. And yes, thank you. Thank you for listening and being patient.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your excellent presentation on the topic of writing research articles. I believe your discussion and presentation on the topic had a significant influence on each and every one of our participants. Thank you once more, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Now I would like to invite questions from the participants, if any.
Hello, madam.
Yes, Aniket, Kanisara, tell me.
Okay, madam. I want to ask that if we while we writing any article related to any subject, then how we can correct our grammars? Means is it there is a some tool for correcting the grammar, or we can manually?
Yes, so this is a very, very important question. Is yes. So many of you can often use Grammarly. Many of the institutions, or universities, colleges subscribe to Grammarly. Grammarly. So Grammarly, what it does is it corrects the grammar of your sentences, edits the sentence. If it's a wrong sentence that you have composed, it will automatically most of the time correct it for you. Okay, but sometimes what happens is even after that. Sometimes our grammar does not really resonate and it's not very clear. So the journal will tell you, the journal editor will tell you that it's best that you send your article to editorial, editorial platform in the journal's loop. Taylor and Francis has this. And when you do that, and you have to pay a nominal fee, and sometimes the fee is, I have to say, is a bit more. 35,000 is a lot for us Indians, but sometimes we do this. We ask you to send that article, and they edit it for you. Okay, so this is an option that you can refer to. I believe there are other apps as well, but I'm familiar with Grammarly, and I personally often have Grammarly installed in my system as well. So it helps. It helps. Yeah.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, madam.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, madam, I am Bhaskar Jyoti Bora, IQC coordinator of Mandipathar College, madam.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question, madam.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes when we are preparing for a research paper for seminars or even workshops, sometimes what happens, there is a deadline to submit the abstracts.
Yes, sir.
So as you have mentioned, madam, in the abstract we should also outline our findings.
Yes.
So suppose in a time limit, if we have to submit the abstract, then how shall we make it, madam? Can you throw some hint upon it?
Definitely, sir. It's a very important question. So I should have elaborated that as well, given I was talking. So, sir, when sometimes, as you mentioned, that you're submitting for a seminar and we just wrote the abstract, we're not written the paper yet. So we do not have our findings at hand. So we use the term hypothesis. The research hypothesizes that. That means this is the possible answer, possible result. So hypothesis is a term that we use. It's a hypothesis. It's not a clear finding, but this is the expectation that this will be the this will be the result of the research. So you use the term hypothesis and you're getting a clean chit there.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, madam, and one more request actually. As you have told that we also need a mentor for the data analysis.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir.
So, madam, from Mandipathar College, if we request, madam, to guide our faculty members if they want, madam, will you be the mentor for us?
Sure, sir. I'm not sure. Definitely, I would not. So the thing is that what you're doing the work, like for instance, I am in humanities. If your research is in humanities, I can definitely help you, no doubt about that. But if it's from management or something which I have no clue about, I struggle with it myself. That will be a bit difficult. But I can definitely try. You can always no problem. So what is your domain of research?
Actually, we are basically humanities only, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect, sir. Sure, I can do that, sir.
Yes, ma'am. And one request to you, madam, if you can kindly share with us your email ID or contact number for future communications.
Yes, sir. So this is on the screen that I'm presenting. My official email ID is there.
Yes.
So if you write to me, I'm always available here. And
Okay.
I can also give my personal email ID. I can send it to you, sir. Just
Okay,
write-
fine. It is fine, madam.
Yes, sir.
Okay, whatever way you feel comfortable, ma'am. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah, ma'am.
I'm always available here because this is my office email ID. I'm always here, sir.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Hello,
Yes, sir.
I have a question, ma'am, if you have spare time.
Yeah, definitely, Mr. Ravindra Yadav.
My question is that, ma'am, how is empirical research useful to original research paper?
When you're writing an empirical research, original research are always empirical research. So that is what I'm trying to tell you. It's always your new findings. It's based on your findings. It's not based on a hearsay. It's based on your findings, your research. So if it's an original research, it's always an empirical research. Okay. So because it's making you contribution, you have done the experiments yourself. You've tried to find out the data yourself. You've done the digging yourself. So it's original research is always empirical research. The other types of articles are different. The review article is different.
Okay. Next, my second question is that, ma'am, what
Yes.
is difference between graphic novels and comics?
Oh yes, perfect. So this is my area. Okay. So this is again very interesting question. So comics, as you know, have been there for a very long time. You have comics on Batman or comics on Aranya Dev. I'm not sure if you read, but Tintin. So in 1970s, there was a shift. What happens is 1971, I believe, Art Spiegelman. So comics are what when we talk about comics, it's a juvenile genre. It's for kids. It's for the it's not very serious, right? When you read a Citizen, it's for kids. You will give it to your kid. You will not give it to your adult child. Or you might read it for if you really love reading, but otherwise you will not read it. But in 1970s, there was a shift. What happened? Art Spiegelman, he writes a graphic novel on the Holocaust, and it's a piece of work. I mean, I would suggest if you're into literature, please read it. It got the Pulitzer Prize. So there were a lot of questions. How can you treat something as painful as the Holocaust through graphic literature? How can you do that? This was a question, and there was this huge uproar in the literary sphere. But it was done so well. He actually represents the Germans as cats, and the Nazis as cats, and the Jews as rats. So it's a different text altogether. It's showcasing gas chambers. It's showcasing mass murder. So it changes the way we perceive this genre, this visual and verbal genre, where there is words and also images, and both are overlapping and interacting. After that, the book on Holocaust wins the Pulitzer Prize, and there is an entire shift. And what happens is a lot of writers across the world start publishing graphic, very serious matters, very painful and very serious matters. Think about emergency in India. Think about partition of India. We have graphic novels on these. This side, that side is a graphic novel on the partition. Then, for the matter. Then we come as a graphic novel on the emergency. Then we're also having on the caste issues, on Ambedkar's life, we're having memoirs done in the form of graphic novel. Now, to come back to your question that you had asked, that what's the difference between comics and graphic novels? Basic thing is that comics are more juvenile, and graphic novels are dealing with very serious matters. They, in the guise of images and art, they are actually scenarios. They're often the images are decoding and coding. You can code and decode the images to find out new meanings. Another big difference is comics are generally brief, okay, 50 pages, 70 pages. But if you think about graphic novels, it can go up to 300 pages as well. That's again a very, very rudimentary definition. Then comics, as I told you, comics is still not getting a significant position in academia. Not a lot of researchers are working on comics. So I know people who are working on comics across the world, but it's still treated as a, I remember Rupkotha, mentioning Rupkotha Journal again. One of my friends who works on comics and sent an article, and then there comes a mail from the editor that it is something very juvenile. You're working on comics, we cannot publish that. So this happens. With regard to graphic novels, no one can do that anymore with you. It's a very serious, they deal with very serious subjects. Think about a graphic novel by Joe Sacco like Palestine. It's on the Palestine crisis. Think about graphic memoirs by Guy Danizel on North Korea, like how the people are being abused in North Korea, how difficult it is to live in the dictatorship even in the 21st century. So yes, this is the basic difference between comics and graphics. And graphic novels. I've answered your question correctly, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. You have explained in a well way of my questions. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, Gazi.
I wanted to ask how reliable is ChatGPT for literary research?
Oh, yes, this is a very interesting question. The thing is that I would always, because again, we are kind of intrigued by AI and what the possibilities of AI. ChatGPT can be useful. I personally have not installed it yet, so I will be able to answer, on the conversation that I've heard around. People have been using to do literature review, but with ChatGPT, but I suggest you don't do that because it kind of summarizes an article for you, and you are not summarizing the article for yourself. That is basically the difference. Okay, I understand there's a dearth of time, but if you really want to reach that mark, if you're thinking of publishing and publishing for the sake of publishing, that's one thing. But as of now, I would still suggest you to review the article yourself. Not rely so much on AI. I know it will take over, and I know that it's important. But as of now, with my very basic knowledge, I'll confess that this is an area I have been, pushing my students not to. I'm not sure if they're listening to me, but I push them always not to, go to ChatGPT and uninstall ChatGPT. But I suggest you not to use it to. Maybe you can use it as a side note, but you also should review the article if you're trying to review articles to ChatGPT.
Yes, ma'am. I was using it to just gather a lot of knowledge.
Yes, I understand. But
But I don't think I'll copy paste it. I will not copy paste it, but just to gather for the sake of information.
yes, but what happens? It will reduce if you're not reading the whole article. AI is doing it for you. You will be reducing your ability to analyze papers. Okay, you will be depending. You will be, what will happen is you will not be able to work without the crutch of ChatGPT. So I would always suggest you. Okay, if you want to, you can do. It's again my personal, personal opinion that I answer not to use ChatGPT, but try to also review articles yourself. It will really help you. Help in your growth as an academic. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
My
It was
pleasure.
nice. Yeah, your session was very good.
Thank you. Thank you.